You are watching the Unconfirmed Diegesis, where unusual stories are examined, strange claims are explored, and the final judgment is always left to you. As always, this story is for your entertainment. Some stories arrive quietly, others arrive carrying questions that refuse to stay buried. Tonight's case falls into another category, one of betrayal that destroyed people's lives. This is the case of the Myrna Hansen abduction story, a woman whose reported encounter with unidentified craft and non-human entities would become entangled in one of the most controversial chapters in UFO research. Her story sits at the intersection of personal testimony, hypnosis, and alleged government disinformation. And decades later, the truth behind it remains uncertain. Let's dive into the Myrna Hansen abduction, and you decide true, false, or something else. According to her account, the events occurred on May 5, 1980, along a remote highway near Cimarron, New Mexico, not far from Eagle Nest, New Mexico. That evening, Hansen was driving through the countryside with her young son. The road was quiet. The surrounding pasture land stretched out under the dark New Mexico sky. At some point during the drive, Hansen noticed something unusual. Bright lights hovered in the distance over an open field. At first, she assumed they were aircraft, but the lights remained motionless, far too steady to belong to a plane. As she continued along the road, the lights seemed to follow her. Concerned, Hansen eventually pulled her vehicle to the side of the road. What she claimed happened next would later become one of the most controversial UFO stories connected to the American Southwest. Hansen later reported seeing multiple disc-shaped objects hovering silently over a nearby pasture. The objects emitted a bright glow but made no audible sound. As she watched, something even stranger reportedly occurred. A beam of light descended from one of the objects and illuminated the ground below. Within the beam, Hansen claimed she could see a cow being lifted upward from the field, rising slowly toward the hovering craft. Moments later, Hansen said she felt a sudden sensation of paralysis. Her body became rigid. She could not move. She could not speak. Then her memory simply stopped. The next thing Hansen remembered was sitting in her car again. The lights were gone. The field was dark, and time had passed. Exactly how much time had elapsed was unclear, but Hansen believed something had happened during that gap in memory, something she could not consciously recall. Hansen's story eventually reached the attention of UFO researcher Paul Bennewitz, who at the time was deeply involved in investigating strange aerial activity near Kirtland Air Force Base. Bennewitz had become convinced that extraterrestrial craft were operating in the skies above New Mexico. He collected witness accounts, radio signals, and radar anomalies that he believed supported this theory. Hansen's experience seemed to fit within the pattern he thought he was uncovering. To explore her missing memories, Paul convinced her to undergo hypnosis. She agreed to undergo hypnotic regression sessions with psychologist Leo Sprinkle, a figure known for using hypnosis to recover alleged abduction memories. During the hypnosis sessions, Hansen described events that she said occurred during the missing time. According to her regression testimony, she was escorted from her vehicle by small humanoid figures. She described them as roughly 4 feet tall, with pale skin and large eyes. Communication, she said, did not occur through spoken language. Instead, the beings seemed to transmit thoughts directly into her mind. Inside the craft, Hansen described a brightly illuminated interior with curved metallic walls. She reported being placed on a table and examined with unfamiliar instruments. Devices emitting soft humming sounds were positioned near her abdomen and chest. She recalled sensations of pressure and vibration, but no pain. At one point, Hansen described seeing a larger figure standing nearby, observing the procedure as if supervising the smaller beings. She also reported seeing a screen displaying unfamiliar images or symbols that she could not understand. Eventually, the examination ended. She described being escorted back to her vehicle and placed inside before the craft departed. Following the incident, Hansen reported lingering fatigue and emotional distress. She also claimed to have discovered unusual marks on her body that she could not explain. The story quickly circulated among UFO research groups and became one of the more unusual accounts collected by investigators in New Mexico. But the case was about to become entangled in something far more complicated. At the center of this unfolding story was Paul Bennewitz. In the early 1980s, Bennewitz believed he had uncovered evidence of extraterrestrial activity connected to military installations in New Mexico. However, years later, researchers learned that his investigation had been influenced by a disinformation campaign. According to several accounts, agents associated with the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, most notably Richard Doty, had supplied Bennewitz with fabricated information about alien bases and extraterrestrial activity. The alleged purpose was to divert attention away from classified military projects being tested near Kirtland Air Force Base. Bennewitz reportedly became deeply convinced that an alien presence was operating underground in northern New Mexico, a belief that would later feed into stories surrounding the alleged Dulce base. Because Paul Bennewitz was involved in Hansen's case and was investigated within this same environment, some researchers believe her story may have been influenced, directly or indirectly, by the misinformation circulating around Bennewitz at the time. Does this make every investigation Paul ever did null and void? My response is no. However, you must exercise caution. What exactly do they want you to believe by confusing the UFO issues with fake or even real information? It's all fake. Nothing to see here. Well, I for one am not buying it. And now Doty has appeared to have had a change of heart and has changed sides. This leaves the Hansen case in an unusual position. There is no evidence that Myrna Hansen herself was part of any government operation, but her account became intertwined with a period when UFO research was being manipulated by misinformation. The result is a case that remains impossible to fully resolve. Was Hansen describing a genuine encounter with something unknown? Did hypnosis shape and expand memories that were never fully understood? Or did the story grow within an environment already saturated with rumors, speculation, and deliberate deception? More than 4 decades later, the Myrna Hansen case still resists a clear explanation. It exists as a documented claim, a contested investigation, and a story shaped by one of the most controversial chapters in UFO history. For the Unconfirmed Diegesis, it remains exactly what this channel explores best: a witness account, a disputed method, and a mystery that continues to linger in the shadows of the unknown. The story has been told. What you believe is up to you. Thank you for watching the Myrna Hansen abduction case. If you have enjoyed this story, then like and subscribe so you won't miss the next time we explore the unconfirmed.